4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're ready to roll. Hello. People first, then construction. Thanks for being here, folks. This is huge. Again, back in the Construction Life Studio, because this place is magical. This is where so many great things happen. And I'm looking around. Just take it in for a second. Just take it in. Because, we talk about in life constantly evolving and getting better. And then sometimes our brains want to pivot to competition. Well, I got to be better than this person. I got to be better than this. Looking, going, for what? If you align yourselves with the right people, then things are great. And that's why today, Roger, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
It's an honor. Folks, my interaction with Roger started somewhere between the era of 5 to 10 years ago, under a different context. I was at Oz Electric, and we met, and I had no idea at the time that our worlds would collide again. And my gosh, the conversations I've had with you, Roger, are heartwarming. They pull on my heartstrings. Thank you. Today is possible because you've made the time and space to allow us to have open and flowing conversations over cups of coffee and telephone and everything. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm super excited to be here today and to add to your comment. And, we met a number of years ago and wouldn't believe that it would lead us to where we are today and many, many conversations later and like-minded discussions on topics that are near and dear to our hearts, and whether it's family, business, friendship, all the above. I'm just so grateful to be here, and I'm really happy for what you developed and what you're continuing to develop. This is such an amazing concept on an amazing platform, and good for you. And again, I'm really excited to be here and kind of share this with you today.
Thank you. I know so much about you, and it's not fair for me to sort of steal all the glory and share that. So I'm going to pivot over to you in a second. And I want this to land with the folks out there for a second. The biggest thing that resonates with me is we're here today because it's not about me and it's not about you. It's holistically about everybody else around us. Mm-hmm. And if I was a jerk, do you think I'd have this connection with you? The answer was no. Yeah. If you were a jerk, you think I'm going to call you and say, hey man, let's have a coffee and spend multiple hours enjoying coffee and just conversation? It doesn't occur.
Yeah.
The point is, you don't have to be a dickhead.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
And I know from some of the space that I've found myself in the past, it hasn't always been that way. There's a lot of egos that enter spaces, and I can tell you what I've learned through the years, and there's so much there, except we're here for you today, Roger, and today you're here a different version of yourself than when I first interacted with you. So tell our audience out there a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. You're right. I am a different version of myself than I was probably even yesterday. But, I guess I was born and raised in Toronto and grew up, much like most of the people that I grew up with in my neighborhood, to immigrant parents, lower middle class, if you will, hardworking individuals, really just taught us lessons about life regarding around integrity, kindness, respect, quality of life, making sure that you respect yourself, which will in essence be able for you to respect other people. And so we had a really easy upbringing. It was just about making sure that family time was important. Kindness was always in the middle of everything, and we just didn't make things difficult. And so it really just allowed me to enjoy life. And growing up, I always wanted to find the simplicity in everything, and what seems to be a very mixed, complicated world that we continue to find ourselves living in. And you know what? My parents were always behind me with whatever I wanted to do, were always supportive, but yet at the same token, slightly also ignorant to what was around because of them just, trying to earn a living and support a family, not being as relevant as they may or could have been, just given the fact that they were, immigrants trying to support a family here in a country that was relatively new for them. And so it was an interesting upbringing for ourselves, and it was, like I said, humble, which was very important, and we stuck with that, as we grew up and to this day, to be honest with you. Professionally, I started my career off actually in sales. Still find myself always in sales. Once a salesperson, always a salesperson, so to speak. But found myself in an organization that was relatively large, a global organization that gave me the quickest school of learning people, business, community, environments, culture at a very young age. I was 19 years old when I first started, was thrown into the mix, felt that I was probably the oldest 19-year-old in any room that I was ever in, just given the upbringing and the level of maturity that we needed to have in our household and, the people that we were always around. And so I felt very comfortable being around older people than myself, specifically professionals that I've, looked up to and wanted to be like, and always wanted to kind of mirror my way of doing things to a certain set where I was able to handle myself, if you will, right? And so, my career continued to evolve in sales, and I continued to develop as many strengths as I can, and found myself in a variety of different industries, and one of which where we had met a number of years ago, and our worlds collided at that point, and had the pleasure of meeting you and sparking this relationship. And then, I felt that this was time that I wanted to do exactly what I was always meant to do, just never realized that it was for me until I had that validation, which is going into the world of entrepreneurship, which is where I'm at today. And without those number of years of experience and adversity and heartaches and ups and downs throughout my professional journey, I don't think I'd be able to be here confidently sitting here with you having this discussion. And I'm just super grateful for, where I was, what I was doing, and definitely where I am today and what I'm able to provide back to everyone else.
Thank you for that. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And a couple of things that really jumped out at me. You talk about the word that really resonates with me is the word humble.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like it was a core value instilled
absolutely
at an early age. If you take that and distill it down to its simplest form, how did that show up in your professional career during that, when you talk about working with a global company? Where did you see that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, company aside, I think it's character first.
Sure.
And one of the things that, we learned at a really young age is you can have it all or you can have nothing. Who you are is who you will still be. And I think that should resonate with everyone, regardless of, the position that they're in, the company that they belong to, the money they make, et cetera. And so I think being at a young age, working for a global organization, with having this humble root, really taught me a quick lesson to say that no matter what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, whoever I'm doing it with, I have to remain humble and realize that today I'm here, tomorrow I may not be. And how do I continue to absorb the lessons that I should be learning? How do I put my ego at the door? And being a 19-year-old working for a really large global company, I think ego is the first thing that should be present, because you've got this, this superhero mentality. I'm not working at a grocery store pushing buggies at 19. I'm actually working for a multi-billion-dollar organization, rubbing elbows with other professionals that are making great money and traveling the world and building their career. And here I am, fresh out of school, doing somewhat of the same thing. And so understanding that may not be permanent, but yet can evolve, maybe not in my favor, is something that I needed to stay true to and remain humble at any point, knowing that this is a gift. This is what I get to learn from. This is everything I get to absorb and continue to grow with, and let it be the harvesting ground for myself as a professional and personally as well.
Thank you for all that. There's a lot there, and it's really cool to reflect back on this at this stage in life. Can you recall back and say, like, what do you actually do in that moment to stay grounded? If it's like, hey, I want to remain humble, is there something that we can share with our audience out there to say, like, here's something that kept me grounded?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you're 19, you're making more money than you probably would have ever imagined to make. And I wasn't making a boatload. I mean, I was making more than I perceived I was going to make at 19.
Of course. Yeah.
And so the challenge is that being grounded didn't come for me until later in life.
Okay.
Because when you're making money with very limited responsibility, you feel like you're on top of the world and you can effectively do anything and you're bulletproof, really. And so you have this naive mindset of saying, oh, I'll be here forever, or I'll continue making as much as I want to. How come he's making more than I am? I want to do what they're doing, and it's not fair that I'm not doing it today. And so this compounded effect of just greed and insecurity and truly being naive, continued to kind of grow on me. I think most of it is because I was thrown into the mix with a number of professionals that have been doing this for a number of years where I haven't, not really understanding the culture and the dynamic of the landscape. And so being able to, A, be aware of what being grounded even means came to me at a much later state in my career, and B, not really caring to be grounded just because I really didn't have that level of responsibility that I have today personally with a family and children and a wife. And so, as time progressed, the need to understand what yesterday looked like, but how important yesterday was to determine where tomorrow is going to be, makes it evident that being grounded is the first most important, moral and value you have to have. Only because, at the end of the day, if there's no ground, you're going to keep falling.
This is interesting, right? Because look, you're real raw and authentic about it, saying there's a point you just don't give a shit. You're doing financially, you're doing successfully well at 19 years old based on whatever presuppositions you had in your head. Yet there's still a tug of war, consciously or subconscious, to know that deep down in your heart, the pillar is humbleness, right? Yet sometimes on the surface level, that escapes us because there are the vices of the world, yet it still shows up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It still shows up.
Yeah.
So this is really cool for, professionals that are out there in similar situations that don't know what they don't know today.
Yeah.
What do you share with them?
Learn as much as you can. I didn't know what I didn't know and I still don't know what I don't know. And I think that's the beauty of just evolving as a human being, personally and professionally. I think one of the biggest limitations you can have for yourself is convincing yourself that you are going to stop learning something, right? And regardless of the age that you're at, whether you're 19, like I was 2 years ago, just kidding, whether you're 19 or whether you are 68, I think the beauty of the saying, you don't know what you don't know, should really incentivize you to get out and learn and fill as many gaps as possible with knowledge, experience, people. You mentioned something in the beginning that resonated with me, which is, if I was a jerk or an asshole, you would never have a coffee with me.
Right.
And I think that's just goes to show you that get out and meet people you enjoy being around. Get out and talk to people you enjoy having conversations with, and without really any reservations behind it. You don't have to go out and have a conversation with someone and say, I hope I have an opportunity with this person, or I hope this person gives me a chance to do something, or if I speak to this person, I give this person an hour out of my time, it better be worth it. Eliminate the reservations. Go in as raw and as real without any expectations to know that this is an opportunity to possibly fill in a gap of where you don't know, and there could be an aha moment. And I've had a ton of those in my life, and I'm extremely grateful for them. And I continue to take every opportunity possible to try to find those aha moments. And I've effectively just switched my perspective on life in the sense that I want to go in not knowing what I don't know, because I love learning. I love asking questions. I love perhaps being ignorant to something, regardless if I'm not, just so I can have that perspective of being ignorant so I can learn something. And I think that's the main obstacle is check your ego at the door. Yeah. You don't know everything, regardless of who you are. And if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my years professionally and even personally is you learn something from everyone, and everyone is ignorant in its own department, right? And so if you have the opportunity to learn without any reservation, take advantage of it. Because there's something you can learn from everybody, whether it's a simple conversation you're having with an old friend that you meet up at a grocery store, or it's a family member, or it's your mechanic. I mean, I could go on and on with situations where I've, met with different people that have given me the opportunity to learn so much from their past experiences or just in that moment, and never had any expectation that I was going to. Yeah. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Thank you. That's huge, right? No agenda, folks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here with you today because we had a conversation after a reconnection on LinkedIn. It led to a telephone conversation to like, holy shit, man, we're so like-minded. There's so many similarities here.
Yeah.
Let's meet up. And guess what? We meet up and it was like, okay, and I think it was like, okay, I got an hour. And then it was like, you have more time? Because this is really good.
Yeah.
And there was no agenda. There was like, hey, I was never concerned that Roger's going to sell me something and vice versa. It was just like, holy shit. And then that's where the magic shows up.
Yeah.
That's why we're here today.
Yeah.
Because of that connection.
Yeah.
Because I love what you say, like, just simply pick up the phone or be present with somebody that's in front of you instead of, hey, I'm present with you, but I'm over here, paying attention to what Angelina's doing. No, like, I'm here with you right now. And that's what matters. Mm-hmm. Because if I miss those opportunities, I don't know what else I'm going to miss, right?
Yeah, no, it's very true. And again, to add some context to our relationship, when we had first met, we met in more of a professional setting. And so we never really thought we should be able to have more of this raw one-on-one, friend-to-friend conversation. And granted, we were talking more around, business and what our companies are able to offer each other, et cetera. And so the opportunity for that never really presented itself. But nonetheless, you didn't just become this individual. You were always this individual deep down. And so was I, in the sense of, wanting to learn, trying to be true to yourself, trying to help others, understanding the importance of life, and ultimately, living with your morals and values you've had for so many years. But it was all incubated in this professional scenario where we weren't able to kind of share these thoughts. And so the opportunity that arose, which was, let's get together and have a coffee and have a chat, no agenda, reservations aside, led to it being initially a 1 hour to almost a 3 hour and change discussion that felt like it was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it was so raw, so real. It was just amazing to kind of talk about so many different topics that you don't have that many opportunities to do so on a regular basis. And it's just nice to have it with someone like-minded like yourself, truly, Jonathan. So it just moments like that you can't take for granted. Yeah. Right.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And one piece of clarity I want to add to share with the audience out there is that it's important to know that when we met initially on a business front, where I tell you, I left thinking there's a lot of alignment and symmetry here from a business or alignment between the two different companies, and it never came to fruition. It never shook out the way it was ever envisioned to shake out. Now, I'm sharing that to say that could have been the context and the filter which life was seen through, right? Where, Jonathan, we never did business in the past, so we're not going to do business in the future. It's not about business, folks. It's about that connection. And because you took the time, energy, and created the space to say, let's reconnect, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what happened in the past. Something happened. Cool. We met at that period of time, and business happened or didn't happen. That's what's so. All the other bullshit is stories that we make believe in our heads that are empty, meaningless. They don't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
I want to share that because now I want to sort of just pivot back to, we're going through this cycle in business, and I want to come back to you. And, you were with an organization almost a decade.
Just under
a decade.
Yeah.
And you leave that environment. Like, how do you feel? What's going through your head when that occurs?
Yeah, loaded question, just because I'm going to add some context to that. So I was with this organization for 8 years, and it was funny. When I first got the job, I had just had my son. And so I was extremely excited, started a family, and started this job that I actually perceived to be the greatest job in the world, and with the greatest company in the world. And I remember saying to myself, to my wife, and to some colleagues, I said, I'm retiring at this place.
Oh, wow.
I'm set for life. You know, I'm this is my place. I'm not going anywhere. And this kind of brings you back to this ignorant, you know, this naive way of looking at things, and truly, nearly not being aware of the fact that, you know, life throws you curveballs, and you think you're going to hit them all. No one bats 1,000.
Right.
And so the excitement, kind of this overwhelming excitement, rushed into me thinking that I'm bulletproof again. I'm this 19-year-old kid who ultimately has no responsibility and can just continue to grow and not have to worry about anything that may curtail me from my plan.
In your mind, you're set for life. Like you ain't going anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so, you know, had a really good career, met a lot of people, yourself included, throughout that tenure there, and learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about others, and learned a lot how I perceive myself. And that's important to me. I think those 8 years gave me what I should have been aware of in the 13 years prior to that in my other places of employment about myself. And this was part of this, you know, we're walking through life ignorantly thinking we can point the finger but at someone else, but you got to turn that finger to yourself. It starts back at home. It starts back with who you are. And that's, you know, what this place was able to teach me. And, you know, it was a culture and dynamic that wasn't necessarily a common denominator with who I was as an individual. And part of me was disappointed at the fact that I had to adjust who I was to fit in, if you will. And that's just not me. I wanted to be me. And I'm talking about, you know, simple things like, you know, just being able to have a regular conversation without having the feeling of being spoken about, or I feel nervous that if whatever I said is going to be wrong, you know, just not having that connection that I wanted in a place that I had made this commitment to invest the rest of my professional life in. And so that put a lot of stress and anxiety in my ability to value myself and put worth in myself. And it effectively drove me into feeling insecure, not worthy in whatever I did, not feeling confident in who I was and how I carried myself and the work that I did, regardless of it being great work, delivered great outcomes. I still wasn't content with who I was. And a lot of it had to do with my inability to be aware of who I am and what I needed, and connecting myself to my true values. But yet I was being guided by the perception that I had because someone else thought I was this or thought I was that. And so that was really hard for me to deal with, because I continued to fight through that and thought that there was, you know, the grass was going to be green on the other side. And March 18th, 2020, you know, COVID was declared a global pandemic. Everybody stay home. Prior to that, I should say, excuse me. But on March 18th, we were home for about a week or so, all doing the remote life, relatively new for most people, specifically with kids at home at the same time. And I got fired from this job that I thought I was going to be at for the rest of my life. And part of it was a massive shock to think that actually would ever happen to me. But a big part of it was a massive relief that it actually happened to me. Only because prior to that, I had built up all of this anxiety about, do I even belong here? Is this who I am? Is this what I want to do? And going back to your prior question about, you know, how do people, you know, kind of engage this, you know, the I don't know approach, you got to ask yourself, nobody else, yourself, and write it down on a piece of paper. Is this truly who I am? And is it where I need to be? And even if it's as silly as one word, saying no, let it sit, let it brew for a little bit, and go back to it. Go back to it in a couple of days when your mind's kind of calibrated itself. And ask yourself the question again, is this where I need to be, and is this who I am? And if the answer is still no after a couple of days, peel the layer back one more, and then ask yourself, what do I want to do? And it could be something that has nothing to do with supporting your life, making money, It just, what do you want to do that allows you to be in the moment of true happiness and true connection with who you are? That is the first step towards really understanding the path you need to be on and who you are as an individual. We get fixated with society painting this picture of get a job, and if you hold on to a job long enough, it's going to be the last thing you're going to do because you need to support yourself, support your family, and there's no other opportunity to do anything else. And it's absolutely incorrect. And I am an example of it. Again, I was at a place that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life in professionally. Got fired. And mind you, got fired quite ugly, actually. Had no severance. Ultimately kind of kicked to the side in the beginning of a global pandemic. All under false context, which was something that is on its own something to deal with as adversity I wish upon nobody, especially with, a family under, a global pandemic and everyone is home. It's just not something anyone should be dealing with. But the sense of relief that it gave me was I don't have to deal with this bullshit anymore.
Wow.
I don't have to fake who I am anymore. I could be me now and do exactly what I was meant to do, because when I asked myself the question to myself, who am I? And the answers were, I'm not where I need to be, and I'm not who I am. Now the layers of that onion can be peeled back even further, which led me to the path after that and led me to, more importantly, who I am and who I can be to someone else comfortably, right?
So much there. Holy shit,
Yeah.
There's so much there. Thank you. I'm so curious, right? You go from, this energetic human being who's like, I'm going to stay here for life. I ain't going to ever go anywhere. And you're doing, optically from all the measurement, socioeconomic scales, you're on top of the fucking world, except inside you're suffering to some sort of regard.
For sure.
There's some sort of tug of war going on, right? Going, am I, I'm perceived this way, but really, am I in alignment? And then you go through that whole sort of the ugliness you described. But I'm curious for yourself. I don't want to stack the questions here, and when do you do that exercise for yourself? Peeling back the onion layers you described. Was that before the exit from that organization? After? Like, where did that come into play for you?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it definitely came into play well before the exit.
Okay.
Because I had, stacked on this vision of where I would need to be and who I need to become to get there well before it. And so I think that sense of relief that I felt was more validation that this was actually meant for me. As ugly as it is at the moment, and as ugly as it was post that moment with respects to, not necessarily accepting it, but more dealing with it, if you will, it was still meant for me. And despite, the peaks and valleys of emotions and obstacles and situations that I had to be dealing with, I continue to remind myself, this was meant for me. And so, I guess what doesn't kill you make you stronger, so to speak. But, you have to go through the storm to enjoy the sunny day right after.
Absolutely.
And that was the storm. And that was the
But you didn't know
storm.
it at the time. See?
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time.
You're evolved. This is the beautiful part. Like we have so many, video games, shows out there where characters evolve. Yet, why do we as human beings sometimes forget that we're evolving every single day? Right? And
That's so true.
You were already practicing that mindset orientation when you were asking yourself tough questions because you didn't know it at the time. When you're doing this exercise and asking yourself these questions, perhaps, and I don't know what was actually, but perhaps in your mind you're still saying, I'm gonna be here for a while.
Yeah.
So what am I doing this bullshit for?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you don't know until you do.
Yeah.
And then when you pivot through there, I don't know, like driving home that day, what was it like?
Man, driving home that day was the best drive I've had in such a long time. Like, I literally felt the weight of the world was off my shoulders. I remember that day like it was yesterday. There was not a single cloud in the sky. It was sunny. The weather was relatively mild for mid-March. It was really nice. And I'm driving home, and I remember calling my wife and letting her know I'm on my way back home. And granted, I had got called into the office during a global pandemic, so I knew something was up at the time. And so I had said to her, she goes, how did it go? First words out of her mouth. And I said, yep, got fired. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I said to her right back after, I said, I'm not. I'm so happy. This is the best feeling ever because I just got validation that I was not meant to be here, that I'm not the person that I had become in this place. And this place was not the place I needed to stay for the rest of my professional career because I'm doing no justice to anybody here. And I'm doing disjustice to myself. I'm not allowing myself to grow and evolve. I'm continuing to compound these insecurities. I'm continuing to compound these disbeliefs and having the inability to grow professionally and personally. But more importantly, I can't share with my children and I can't share with others to be of service because I'm constantly questioning myself. Am I good enough? Am I doing that well? Does this person like me? Am I going to get fired tomorrow? Did I do this job okay? All the bullshit that goes in your head when you're dealing with a culture and dynamic that is so toxic, you feel you're the single contributing factor to that environment. That's the insecurity. That's 100% insecurity. And so for those that are actually going through that, which we both know there's a lot that are going through that, you got to ask yourself, is it really true that you are contributing to that environment? Wow. Or do you believe fictitiously that you are the major reason why you're doing it because someone else is sharing that insecurity on you? And someone, really wise was telling me after it had happened and I was explaining, getting a little bit more vulnerable in the sense of what I had felt for years prior to that, they had said to me, they said, your insecurity was essentially the insecurity from the person you were dealing with. That's all it was. And so it wasn't you that was insecure. You were mirroring someone else's insecurity. And I think that's a really amazing reality check to have is, the layers of the onion approach, is 100% applicable to in that moment. Are you who you are, or are you just a reflection of who you're talking to?
Wow, that's huge.
And it is huge because unfortunately I wasn't able to apply that throughout, my tenure there or anywhere for that matter. Even today, I'm still now very aware of, am I really just who I am or am I merely who I am speaking to? And, energies feed off each other. Of course. And that's why it's so critical to be around people that are not necessarily like-minded, but just energetically have a great spirit, have a good personality, make the room better when they walk in, understand how to, increase the volume of just happiness and warmth in a room. Being around people that are drain the energy out of a room are ultimately going to drain the energy out of yourself.
Well, look at the burden you took on, right? I love that analogy and that person that shared with you. Thank you for that wise advice. Is that those insecurities are the insecurities of that person. They're unsolicitedly volleying over to you. That puts a burden on you to say, holy shit, I can't take an hour and 5 minutes for lunch. Holy shit, I can't go here. I can't. And we become limiting, and we have these limiting beliefs of here's the constraints I got to work within because if I want to provide for my family. And look at the freaking opportunities that we miss along the way.
Absolutely.
Right? We're not going to, for everybody, those opportunities are different, except that when you talk about this, you're like, holy shit. And I can see today, because it's liberating, I can see it as you describe the story, how liberating it is. Your body language changes, your energy, the energy you emit is phenomenal, rather than sort of sitting down and going, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I just got an asshole ripped into me for this, and now it's like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. And then what happens? You carry that baggage that is not even your shit to deal with.
Exactly.
It's not your shit to deal with. It's somebody else's garbage that they threw your way is now their garbage is now in your front yard and you got to clean it up.
Yeah. It took me years to realize and accept the fact that people deal with their own shit And it may just be the luck of the draw that you're talking to them at the moment when they are trying to deal with it. And so that plays a lot into feeling insecure. Because if we're having this conversation today and you're dealing with a bunch of crap and you had no outlet to release it, and yet somehow you're permeating this heartache and adversity you're dealing with through this conversation that has absolutely no connection to it, the insecurity in someone is going to feel that I'm bringing this out in you.
Yeah.
I'm doing something wrong. You're mad at me. I annoy you. These are things that once added on over and over and over again, specifically in a workplace environment with whether it be your boss or peers that you work with quite often, well, what do you think is going to happen? They don't give a shit how you feel because they're not aware of it. And even if they were, they probably wouldn't give a shit. You have to do a self-inventory. You have to ask yourself, am I really the one making that person act like that? Right? And so I didn't do that for so many years. I just kept accepting the fact that I was the one making them feel like that, which effectively made me feel that I'm not good enough. I'm building on this compounded effect of insecurity, anxiety, disbelief, limiting beliefs. And so when I became conscious, keyword, because we live very much unconsciously with everything that's happening around us. When I was conscious, I told myself that every time I'm having a conversation with someone who may not be acting a certain way that I think they would normally act, or if I feel like they're coming across with a certain level of energy that I wouldn't necessarily resonate with, then I'm conscious to ask the question, are they going through something?
Wow.
Could they be going through something? And so it allows me to be able to be of service and try to work with them in a way and speak with them in a way that would help calm them down and perhaps break down those barriers. And I feel like if you can almost gamify it, you can actually learn more about yourself, in the sense of, if this isn't working, well, how do I do something else to make it work? And it creates this opportunity to find more about yourself while also trying to contribute to be of service to help this individual out, all while trying to let yourself know this isn't you. You will happen to be the recipient of what's happening. And so that is so critical if one can do that, and start small. Start small. You don't have to have all this figured out. If you're having a conversation with a buddy or a sibling or a parent, one of which that dynamically, there could be more ups and downs you've experienced. So when their good side, what their good side looks like, and what their not so good side when it comes out. And so you have that, context with someone somewhat closer to you than perhaps a new peer or a colleague that you just met. Start small. Be able to learn the consciousness of that approach rather than the ability to deliver a service at the moment. Just be conscious. And I think if you're able to be conscious in that moment, being conscious in all other aspects, of life is critical to understanding how you should react or what you should do next, right?
Thank you. Like, to think, it's presence and curiosity. Like, for me,
yeah,
that's exactly what just showed up when you talked about that. You actually gave a shit. You actually, here's the takeaway, folks. Give a shit about the person in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about, somebody's saying something to you and you're thinking, okay, how can I be of service to them? Great.
Yeah.
These are fluffy words. Sometimes we hear often, except right now you've actually made it tangible. You've given real life examples of here, what's really going on with this person? I become curious.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about you.
Well, check your ego at the door.
Check your ego. It's not about you. You're showing up for the person in front of you.
It's hard though, Jonathan, like it, and I'm not going to say it's an easy task. I mean, still to this day, there's moments where my ego may be present and it'd be like, oh shit, this doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. What did I do? Why is he acting like this? Why is she acting like this? Or why is this person even speaking to me like this? And again, that's just ego coming up and saying, hey, relax. It's not all about you. And in order to feel that you can effectively manage the conversation, you have to first determine that ego is out the door. You can't have ego in front of you. And so it's not easy, but it's required because society is built us where we have to focus on what do we get first before I help you.
Right. What's in it for me first?
What's in it for me? And then I'll be able to help you. So if you're kind to me, then I'll be kind to you. If you're an asshole to me, I'm going to be an asshole to you. All with what this quote unquote consciousness is telling us is I need to feel good first. I need to get something first before I can give something. Yeah. When in reality, truly it's you have to give before you can receive. Right? But in order to give, you have to be aware of what is it that you need to give. And at that moment, it could just be an ear for somebody to just speak into because they're just having a shit day. It could be compassion. It could be common sense, logic. It could just be just the sounding board and just shut up and let someone vent. But being conscious at that moment to know what you need to provide to give will effectively get you back what you deserve. Yeah. Right?
Thank you. It's about giving. And there's no script for it. There's no like, okay, here's the menu items. I got to go down the checklist. There's no checklist.
No.
It's be present for that person in front of you. So, this is awesome. I mean, this is who you are holistically today as a result of all the things in life that have compounded. And now we sort of take this, and I really want to pivot to the next chapter, right? Like Oak Hill. How does this come to be? Tell us about Oak Hill, because this is pretty magical, and this is built on the foundation of being a human being first and taking everything you just talked about. It transitions to a business. So tell us out there a little bit about how this came to be and sort of the platform of it today.
Yeah, no, I mean, Oak Hill conceptually was always on top of my mind. As I mentioned, this is ultimately what I've always wanted to do. Never knew Oak Hill as a name was what it was supposed to be, but the concept of Oak Hill, which is a boutique private equity investment firm. We focus on looking at acquiring companies within the e-com space specifically. And so we're looking at, small to medium-sized businesses, and this is exactly what I've always wanted to do. My business partner and I, who had co-founded Oak Hill Group with myself, going back to what we just said before, we were the like-minded individuals. We could talk for hours, if not days, about anything and feel like there's always something of tangibility there, because we just had so many things that, we had common denominators on, whether it's, fatherhood, being a husband, a professional, work life, balance with home life, etc. We just hit it off, and I've known my business partner for 15 years. And so we always had these conversations about doing this.
Right. Just
never had the chutzpah to do it.
Sure.
And so what was amazing was when I was let go, it was like, game on. This is it. Like, there's no other time in life that's going to give you the answer in front of you to say, this is your time.
You say that like without reservation, the way you describe.
Zero.
Holy
like,
shit.
This is your time. Like, it's literally like,
you knew,
get the fuck up and do it.
Yeah, holy shit.
And so this is your moment to say, you can't have any excuses. You can't wimp out. There's no turning back. You got the hardest slap in your face, but you needed it because you had so many limiting beliefs before that you think you couldn't, because I was being fed this from other energies around me. And this was showtime. And so, we worked our butts off to get ourselves up. And I'll tell you something. The old saying goes, when your back is against the wall, just go out and swing. I swung my life out because I had nothing else behind me. Like, literally, I had no other option but just to swing. And so if I can bottle the amount of time from when we had started this company, to when we bought our first company, and just have it there to look at in terms of everything that went through, the emotional roller coaster, the the amazing high five moments to the holy shit, what do we get ourselves into moments, to balancing my family time and the expectations and knowing that, hey, look, man, life doesn't take a pause in terms of bills and mortgage payments and, your kids needing a father to be there and obviously food on the table. This was all during COVID when shit was in the air.
Even
like
the
it was
most uncertain time.
People don't
even know how to react.
Yeah, getting fired, not having a backstop because the world was ultimately shut down, trying to support my family, trying to start a company to be able to support my family, and dealing with uncertainty around the world and not knowing what tomorrow is going to look like with respects to, the outcomes of this pandemic and just dealing with all of that. I tell you, I could not be more grateful for the adversity and the amount of toughness it required me to have that I didn't think I could have. And I didn't think that was in me. But man, oh man, it came out because it had to.
Right.
That was my only option. And so there are a lot of people that may be dealing with this. There are a lot of people that may be considering to leave their place of employment, start a company, or even just have a simple conversation with their employer that they've always feared to have because they didn't think that they could be strong enough to have it, or they immediately pictured the outcome of that conversation or that meeting or the decision they were going to take, and they went down the path of negativity and limiting beliefs and all the bullshit that holds us back from being exactly who we are or who we need to be. Just do it. Literally do it. Because there is a sense of reactiveness. There's a beauty of being reactiveness equal to the beauty of being proactive. You could be proactive as much as you can, but you can never really determine what happens tomorrow. You can plan for it, but you don't know how tomorrow is going to be. Mm-hmm. And so there's an amount of reactiveness that you need to be okay with, and you need to just have the grit to be able to handle what comes to you. And if that plan that you had done proactively doesn't match the effect of what happened, then you better be willing to react and step up and know that shit's not going to go your way. And how do you navigate through that? And so have that conversation. And if that conversation doesn't go your way, navigate through it. Be able to accept it. Be conscious of the fact that who you need to be at the moment and work with it. Because it's only going to make you grow. And that's exactly what happened to me. It's made me grow as an individual. It's made me grow as a professional. It's made me grow mentally, emotionally. I've connected with myself and being able to understand who are the pillars of Roger and what do those pillars represent? And how can I finally take who I've always wanted to become and manifest that more while trying to bring that to other people and have them be aware of it at the same time. Right? Yeah.
That's huge, right? Because then, you know all this, and it's accept the situation consciously, right? Like, you're not sitting there saying, wallow in that poor me scenario. Sure. You want to feel bad, you want to express the emotion, fine. Don't hang out there because it ain't going to serve well, right? And now you take that, and this is really important, I understand fundamentally, because a lot of the work you do today is essentially you're buying businesses. And when you say that, it's not transactional. What you're actually doing is you're buying somebody's baby. This is their creation. They started this business. If I have a business, it ain't going to be easy for me to let go. It ain't going to be easy for me to let go. And so now you've just described on the way you connect with people, right? Here's how you connect with people. Here's how to touch, move, and inspire them, right? You can share your stories, Vaughn, because you've lived it, right?
Yeah.
Like, here it is, folks. And look, they don't have to agree with you or disagree with you. It is what it is. So what's it like? I'm curious. Like, what's it like when you say to somebody, "Hey, I want to buy your business," because that's really, it's like selling a kid.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we actually have this we have this, not really a saying, but we talk about this all the time. You know, the owners of the businesses that we typically go after are effectively the biological parent of this company. They started it, for the most part, from nothing. And they've grown it into becoming a company that, you know, is something that we're interested in working with and having it a part of our portfolio, if you will. But ultimately, this is the biological parent of this company, meaning they created this company. And so the emotional connection they have with their businesses is much greater than second, third, fourth gen owner of a company that is, you know, transacting in a sale. This is effectively parting with a child. And so when you are working with an owner who is, for the most part, within our space, owner operators, you've got somebody who is there every day, probably first in, last out, cares about their company the most out of everybody that's there, has put in countless amount of hours, blood, sweat, and tears in making their business grow, to possibly speak with a company like ourselves about just selling it to us and putting it in the hands of people that they're not sure can continue with what they've developed, right, and put in the equal amount of passion that they did when trying to grow it. And so it can get difficult if you commoditize the approach, which we don't do. We're actually a much slower moving business in the sense of our acquisition process. Understanding that the companies that we typically look at are owner operators, first gen, the biological parent, if you will. Yeah. And so we put a lot of emphasis on relationship building, empathy, and consciousness around how important this company is to that owner and quite possibly their family, which we presume have been contributing to supporting the family for, you know, X amount of years. And so we can't come in this hostile approach and say, hey, we want your company. Here's what we're paying for it. If you like it, great, get out. That's the furthest thing from what we do. We take it the complete opposite approach. We really want to get to know the owner. We really want to get to understand how they operated the business. What were their challenges? What were their high five moments? Really learning about their story of how they built this business. We're obsessed with the stories behind how people built their business because they ultimately made the decision to be who they've always wanted to be and go down the path they've always wanted to go down. And it's funny, you know, we review, you know, a number of deals, you know, relatively often, and we get to meet a number of people, it's probably one of the best parts of my job is to get to meet a number of different business owners and learn about them. And what I've found as a common denominator is, for the most part, they all have the same story. They work somewhere, they realize they can't work there, or they didn't like where they worked. They didn't like who they became as a person working for this company. And so they decided to just do it on their own. And then they go out and spend a number of years building a business that ultimately becomes a successful business that they've supported their families with, continue to support the lifestyle that they live. And it's just such an amazing part of the process to learn that. Inspiring for the most part, and just incredible to be a part of that. And to have an opportunity to possibly be a part of that ownership and continue the story, which we effectively make a promise to say we want to continue with, you know, the vision and the story. We're not in here trying to change the business. We're just in here trying to optimize it and take your story to even greater heights, right? Yeah. And so that approach allows us to become much more connected to business owners and remove ourselves from the transaction, if you will. Because we're not a transaction-based business.
It's so much further than transaction. Like the way
Yeah.
you're touching, moving, inspiring me, and I don't even have any e-commerce business, right?
Yeah.
But this is the whole thing. It's the connection with people.
Yes.
You know, and it comes back down to the way that you start the conversation, like that core value of being humble.
Yes.
You're not being an egotistical jerk showing up saying, "Here's the dollar value your company's worth. Take it or leave it." Because there are many transactional opportunities. Like there's many transactional spaces out there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, one of the most rewarding things that I've heard in my entire career was there was a business that we were looking at acquiring, and the owner of the business had said to me, out of province, and the owner of the business had said to me, right off the bat, brushed me off when I had approached her about having a discussion around possibly if there's any interest in selling your company, and so brushed me off.
Sure.
And her response was, I get 5 calls a day from private equity firms, both from Canada and the US. I'm good, thanks. I kind of had to digest that response and say, okay, well, why did that response come and what did I do wrong to get that response? And I realized quickly, my ego led there. I approached this individual with a little too much ego in the sense of, if I approach this person, they're ultimately going to respond with, yes, I'd love to have a conversation. Not being conscious of what this person may be thinking or going through if someone like myself is approaching them to say, hey, would there be any interest buying your company? The emotional roller coaster that happens when the slightest thought of selling your company that you've effectively raised and brought into this world can be such an emotional roller coaster. So now to have an actual discussion with someone who has no connection to the business other than interest is hard to even accept. And so my second approach was different. And that was more of a personal approach, acknowledging the story, acknowledging the company, acknowledging the skill it took to build that business to where it is at the moment, and praising the individual for doing such a fantastic job in what may be a complex scenario. Want to learn more about it, and I truly want to learn more about it. And so that approach, which was by no means strategic, but yet very, very raw, real, with the utmost integrity to learn more, was what allowed me to learn more and get further, into understanding the business and understanding the owner's connection to the business. And that's ultimately, Oak Hill Group, summed up in a way where that's our approach. We're just a humble group that curate family-oriented style businesses that praise and respect and build on people's skill, but develop more. We want people to grow. We want people to evolve. More importantly, we want people to feel that they can evolve. And I think that's such an integral part is, there's a quote on our website, which was a quote from Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich, one of my favorite books. And he stipulates, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And that quote was from Henry Ford. And, it's so true. And that's essentially what we should be going through in life is whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. The decision is yours now. And so this culture we foster within our organization and the businesses that we want to work with and the people we want to work with, this is the forefront of our mindset is you don't have to be concerned about working in a culture that limits you or that makes you feel that you are only as good as the position that you're in today. It is ultimately a company that embraces the ability to believe in yourself. You have the decision to make, and whatever decision you make, you've committed to it that you're right. But you have to believe in anything you want to do, and we're here to support you. And so it's such a important thing for me because I lived it and still living it to this day, but it allows me to provide that to somebody without the fear and insecurity that I may be doing something wrong, right? The gates have opened for me to do this. And this is the service I want to be able to deliver. The reward after this is seeing someone evolve and grow that I can contribute to, truthfully.
And if it's within the Oak Hill Group, great. And if not, cool. You still had an impact on them.
Absolutely.
There's thank you for sharing that story, right? Because you had approached scenario 1, right? Okay, so maybe you made a mistake. So what? You're human, right? Now you're showing up with vulnerability. Say, fuck, I screwed that one up. Let me recalibrate on that, right? Because you learned something from yourself, and you take a different approach.
Yeah,
we're connecting again. Now we're connecting.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, of course.
This is so cool. I want to pivot this because there's some alignment and symmetry in some of the things we do, and one of them is sport. Right?
Yes.
Specifically sports with young athletes.
Yep.
And I know that you make time, effort, and you spend energy coaching young athletes, and that's magical. And thank you for doing that, because that makes a big difference. All of this stuff you sort of talked about today, how do we relate it to young athletes? Why is it like, why even bother getting into it? Because like you've already got enough shit to do in your life.
Yeah.
Why even bother?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do have a lot of shit, but the coaching plays two major parts. Number one, it's an escape from the day to day. It allows me to foster a culture outside of a professional environment, and allows us to work with the youth, like you said, young athletes, to shape them into the future leaders that they should be. Number two, my son, who I coach as well, was part of sports before, and where I wasn't a coach. And I just realized that, for most, taking on the coaching role, especially if you're a parent, was almost feeling like it was an obligation because no one wanted to do it.
Okay.
And so that level of commitment and that desire to want a young athlete to grow mentally and physically wasn't there, kind of bothered me. I've got this, like, sitting on the sidelines, I'm just like raging inside, wanting to get out and just talk to these kids, or just, spark their energy levels and get them feeling motivated and wanting to just have this desire to do great things. Didn't exist when I was sitting on the sidelines for the most part. And so taking on coaching, young athletes like I'm doing today is probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. And, I get to be these kids' mentors. I get to resonate with these kids in a way that's different than teachers and parents. For starters, we've got a common denominator. We both like the sport that, they're playing and I'm coaching. Number two, I have a really great ability to communicate with, the younger groups in terms of knowing what's bothering them. I couldn't care less if they can kick a ball hard, run fast, score, block, anything related to the technical ability of the game we're playing. I couldn't give a shit if they do it well. All I care about is if they believe they can do it well.
Yeah.
And part of my coaching at every single practice is we do mind development training. And a lot of times I pair it with, obviously, physical training, but I let the physical training come in first and stress their bodies out. And then I introduce the mind strength training, because I want them to feel that physical grit, that effort they're putting in, which at times could feel painful physically because they're working hard. Mm-hmm. But to realize it's the mind that's going to control the body. It's the mind that's going to tell you can go through the pain. You're going to fight through the pain. Because after you fight through this pain mentally, you're going to get back up and you're going to do it again. And we've talked about this on several occasions. Much like yourself, who also coaches, young athletes. There is such a strong correlation of sports, specifically within the youth, to life. And we've talked about this, and we share so many great aspects of this. And one of the things I enjoy so much is always bringing in real life on the field. I coach soccer.
Yes.
And so, parents are on the sideline kind of listening to this and saying, oh shit, this is actually pretty cool stuff. Like, I want to listen in on this as well. And I invite anybody to listen to it. But I want to focus on making sure that these kids understand the field is the canvas. Paint the picture you want. But you ultimately hold the brush, nobody else. If you want to feel down about yourself and you think you can't play the game, guess what? You're right. Because you think you can't. But if you feel you could play the game and you feel you can hold up to the game's expectations and fight through the pain and have the grit and dedication to do it, then you're right. You can do it. I could not give a shit what the score of the game was. I couldn't. I care about whether or not these kids can come off the field with an attitude knowing that they could do anything they want to do. Because that's what's going to correlate to them in life. And when they come up with a situation, and hopefully they never do, but if they happen to, because life throws you curveballs, where they get fired from a job, they've got to deal with other adversities. They've realized that there was years of coaching in my sport that I played, that I had a coach that taught me how to mentally prepare myself for adversity and pain, and I know how to overcome it just by me controlling myself through my mind.
Thank you. You know, right there, you're talking about the limiting self-beliefs, right, and the conversations we have in our head, which are so powerful. That I love the way you talk about it. It's not who gives a shit what's going to happen on the field. Yes, that everything matters, so that has a piece of the puzzle, except that you have the confidence to know that if we do all the right things in the background, the outcome on the field is going to be the outcome on the field.
Exactly.
Right? It's not like, oh, the outcome on the field, and then we're going to pivot backwards. No, when you properly prepare mentally, emotionally on what's going to occur, it either happens or it doesn't. And so what if it doesn't? So what now? Like, thank you for sharing this. It strikes a chord with me because, you know, validation here and real, you have a huge impact. I saw it when we were having a coffee, and, you know, an athlete walked by.
Yeah, one of our teammates. Yeah.
Walked by, and you stopped on a car, and you gave him a huge hug. Like, that's how much this boy ran up to you and was like, hey, I give you a huge hug. To me, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Look at the impact you're having on this boy.
Yeah.
For the rest of his life, whether consciously or subconsciously. Nobody remembers how many games you win, how many goals you score. Nobody gives a shit. It's the impact that person has on my life.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. One of the parents on the team actually spoke with me recently. We have a policy on our team, and that is that if we find out if you're not doing well in school, grades aside, because I'm not about judging whether or not a child or an adult is smart enough by grades. I think that's an improper way of doing things. But that's aside from that. If you're not doing well in school, if you're being spoken to more often than you should, if you're acting up, if your parents are getting called because of other reasons that they should not be being called for, ultimately just summing it up to the fact that you're acting up in school and it's not right. You're not being, you know, the individual that you should be to respect others and respect others' times and respect yourself. And we have a policy that you don't play.
Okay.
And so we do this reoccurring, call it audit on how are you in school? How's it going in school? We're talking to your parents, we'll talk to you, and we check in with them every so often. And there was a moment when one of our players came to practice not suited up because the parent had said that he swore in school. He got called to the principal's office. And so I said, okay, if you don't mind, would you be okay if he still plays today? But I'd like to have a conversation with him first. And she's like, of course. And so I pulled him aside and I said, you got a choice to make being a young man that you are. You can go through life following other people's behaviors and thinking that that's the way you should be, or you can create your own, knowing how someone else feels and how you feel. Now look at the outcome that happened with something like this. You got in trouble and you're not allowed to play a sport that you love to play, and now you got to watch everybody else do it. So I said, because the decision you made, you got to feel it. And you got to understand that it's these decisions that can get you in the same outcome over and over and over again. And as you get older, if you continue to follow these paths, the outcomes may not be as soft as sitting on the sideline. And so we put him through the gauntlet at practice that day. And he felt the physical pain. And I asked him, now that you're tired and you're exhausted and you worked your butt off, would you make these decisions again? And ever since that moment, his mom, who had told me, said he did a 180 at school. Like he's just changed so much. And I think it's all because of the fact that we create a fun environment where we train. We make these kids feel empowered to do what they want to do. We make them believe they are whoever they want to be. And we give them the discretion to do so. But we also provide a parameter of firmness in how we coach to give them that barrier to say, look, we're going to put you on the right path. This isn't just about a sport. This is about mental, physical discipline, personality, character. You know, I have a rule. Bags have to line up neatly on the side. Badges on the field. Why? It's a brand. It's yourself. It's your image. The moment you come onto the field before you kick a ball, you say hi to every single one of your teammates and your coaches. Why? It's the respect for others. It's the ability to respect others so you can respect yourself. The other rule is that regardless, win, loss, or tie, you shake your teammates' hands. They are your brothers. Because we win together, we lose together, we tie together. That's no different in life. Yeah. This pointing of the finger doesn't exist in our world. So when you move yourself into a company and things don't go your way, don't point the finger at someone else. Who are you first? And understand that this is a collaborative effort. We're all in it together. Help each other. It's essentially the footings of what we try to do.
Wow. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That resonated with me. You know, and there's so much more that's buzzing around, and you know, that's possibly future discussions. And still, there's something that I really want to acknowledge and get out there today, and it's something you shared with me. And you have a vision board. Mm-hmm. I call it a vision board, you know, whatever you want to call it. But in front of you, the way I understand it, is in front of your desk, and please add clarity to this. And on it, it says, vision, legacy, greatness, success, hustle. Bring me into this world. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so it's in front of my desk on the wall, so I stare at it all the time. And, you know, it just reminds me, whether it's a good day or a shit day, there's still a goal. I'm not going to be sidetracked by the good days and thinking that everything is easy, but I'm also not going to be put down when days are tough. There's a goal. And, you know, there might be this perception that entrepreneurship and running your business is just this upward momentum. Right. Life's great. This is fantastic. And no, it's the furthest thing from the truth. I think many people have seen kind of different illustrations of people's definition on entrepreneurship and family life. And it goes ups and ups. There's ups and downs, and there's spirals, and there's moments where you feel stuck. There's moments where you feel like you're on top of the world. And there's moments where you don't feel like you're anything, truthfully. You might feel invaluable. I think the purpose of that on the board there is to remind myself that at any given day, however I'm feeling, of the key words that you mentioned, what am I feeling the most of and what am I not feeling any of?
What do you mean?
So, for instance, if I feel like it was a great day, sure, and it was you know, successful in the sense of that I felt there was a lot of progress made, contribution, you know, there's hustle, checked off. Got it. Hustle was checked off today. Did I feel like I was contributing to the legacy I was leaving behind? Or did I just transact the entire day? So then I can do an inventory and say, okay, what is tomorrow going to look like? What do I backfill for the next day? Because these are such important pillars of my life that I need to know I can backfill them. There may be days where I don't feel successful, or I don't feel I had a successful day because I was focusing, you know, too much on, let's say, perhaps putting towards legacy. Sure. Okay, well then, what is it that's going to make me feel successful? How do I feel successful? And how am I okay with understanding that there's going to be days where there's going to be some offsets in terms of the levels of that contribution. And one of the actual words on the board is vision.
Okay.
And why that is so important to me is because, on days where I'm feeling like I'm not doing what I feel like I should be doing, I keep reminding myself, there's a vision and it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like, get off your high horse, check your ego at the door, and allow yourself to know that there is a vision, and just continue to work towards that vision, and it will come to fruition. Just be patient. And I think having that patience, regardless of where you are in your journey, is so critical. It's so critical, right? Understanding, and this is harder to do than to say, obviously, being okay with the time that it takes to get to the next step is because it needs to take that amount of time to get to the next step. It's not because you're not good enough to get it there faster. Yeah. It's because that time is required. There's so much learning that happens, and your blueprint, so to speak, is being manipulated every single day. And so if you're pissed about how long it's taking from when you started your business to getting your first sale, it's because you have to learn other things before you get your first sale that you may not be conscious to. But your vision is there. Just be okay with it moving around, right?
That's huge, right? Because we make ourselves wrong and like, here's the vision, and my vision is X, and I'm not here, and we're trying to compress it because we live in that world where it's like, compress everything. And I love what you're talking about, where it's just like, listen, you've got your vision, and there's days where it's going to take longer than anticipated.
Absolutely.
Recalibrate. It doesn't mean quit. It doesn't mean throw things away. It means it's going to take whatever it's going to take, and it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. It's simply going to take longer because there's things that you don't know. You don't know.
Right.
You have to learn this, or you have to do this, or holy smokes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really cool, right? And just having that visual is a constant reaffirmation for your mind, your body, your spirit to say, wherever you're at is where you're at, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Where you're at, is ultimately where you've made the decision to be, first and foremost. And you have the ability to change your direction and the distance. You just have to make the decision. Nothing's going to come to you, okay? But you need to have a target and a vision in place in order to know where you're going, right? And so, unfortunately, directions may have to change, right? As we drive, we don't only drive north. We drive in multiple directions to get to our destination. And it's no different than when setting out our vision and our goals. It'll take multiple directions to get there. And we may have to detour. But along the way, you're learning things about yourself, about perhaps the goal you have, the people around you, the processes that allow you to get stronger and perhaps get to your goal faster, maybe, or perhaps change directions because the one you're on may not be the best one.
Got it.
Right?
Holy smokes. So much buzzing around, and there's a whole different platform that, I'm going to send this little teaser out there for all the audience out there, because the next time we're going to be together, maybe there's going to be a word up there that's going to say create, and the teaser out there is stand by, because Roger and company were up to some pretty big things. Stand by, folks. Create is something tremendously magical that we'll spend another hour plus talking about. So stand by. Roger, I got a couple of fun questions because you've been so vulnerable and transparent and honest, and I can't thank you enough for that.
No problem.
Holy shit, man. All of this being said, we all have driving forces. We all have driving factors in life. I mean, I'm curious. When you do the internal work, because it's very clear that you do the internal work that allows you to show up for others and be present and, talk about business, talk about athletes, we talk about life, and it's all a holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think to yourself, how would this person react? In other words, is there somebody out there that you admire, that you put yourself in? How would this person react? Multiple people? Like, who do you admire?
Yeah, good question. I mean, to be honest with you, I read quite a bit.
Sure.
I mean, there isn't really anyone specific that I admire as an individual. I admire a type of person.
Got it.
I admire the individual who can confidently balance their life successfully in all areas, business, family, friendships, in a way where they do it somewhat effortlessly, but yet understand the importance of when to put more emphasis in certain areas of this mix.
Okay.
I really admire individuals that can do that. And I look up to anyone that, who can do that. And throughout my journey, I've met a couple of people that have definitely displayed that to me. And I really, truly am inspired by that because, for those that have, are exploring entrepreneurship or have listened to podcasts and read books and whatever form of knowledge you're getting through whatever method, there's this concept of you're being an entrepreneur, drop everything, work, fucking 22 hours a day, don't sleep, don't eat, just grind at your business. I don't know. To me, I think that's just bullshit. I think there's so much importance in being able to just disconnect from work and putting your effort and your presence in other quadrants of your life that you need in order to have this completion so you can balance yourself. And I think there are different areas of different facets of your life that will help each other and they work relatively fluid with one another. My business and what we do can't do what it does unless I have my children and my wife behind me and supporting me and understanding that. But also my business can't be successful or anything I want to do can't have any success if I don't have that time to spend with my kids and bike riding with our family and going for a nature walk or just playing board games and being able to just have that moment in the moment, right? And not worrying about what work is doing, because I think it's super critical that my children and my wife and friends are getting me in the moment, for that moment, right? And I don't think it's fair to anyone, and I don't think it's fair for my business to just to focus on only that thing. And I feel like you have to have this, balanced approach in every area. And that's truly who I look up to, are individuals that can have that approach and methodically know when to turn it off and when to turn it on in other areas. I think that's so important. And authors that, that I've read in the past and continue to read their works talk about that.
Yeah.
They talk about that.
Yeah. Thank you. I've got that through our whole conversation, is that there's no one specific answer. It's a holistic approach, right? Everything you've talked about today is being of service to others and truly being present and connecting with human beings in front of you, whether that be on a field, in a boardroom, on a telephone call, or at home.
Yeah.
That theme has resonated so deep throughout our entire conversation today. There's no, this is the magic pill. No, it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
Holistic approach, because that's who made you who you were many years ago and helped you evolve to who you are today, and the messages you're transmitting to your family and to those around you and to your business partners and future business partners that don't even know that they're future business partners yet. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Look, huge. Some of the things you talked about today resonated so deep with me, and I know it landed with others out there. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, good question. There is a contact tab on our website at Oak Hill Group. You can find the operating companies that we have, and each of them have their own social media handles. You can connect me direct through there. LinkedIn. You can connect directly with me through LinkedIn as well. I respond relatively quickly. Love to kind of meet new people. Love to share stories. Love to help out wherever I can. So definitely, entertain those avenues. Love to connect.
Thanks, Roger. And we'll have all those links into the description in the show notes. Roger, it has been an overwhelming pleasure. Thank you for being here today. And I look forward to our future conversations. So thank you.
No, thank you. And again, I'll want to reiterate the fact that, what you've been able to do and the platform you're doing it on to reach so many people and to have such a positive impact for people that, what we've talked about in the past, may not feel confident in themselves to realize that they need it, nor do they feel confident in themselves that they can act on it. I think you're doing such great things, and I really appreciate you and for what you do and your commitment to connecting with people and helping them out, and for connecting with the youth athletes and connecting with adults as well, professionals, and even on a personal standpoint. I really do appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm very grateful for being on here. Can't thank you enough, because this is awesome. You're awesome, and this was great. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger. Angelina, thank you. Thanks for making it all happen in the background.
Thanks, Angelina.
All right, man. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man.
Holy smokes.
How was that?